celebrating Pacific Northwest Conference of the United Methodist Church. Can I get a woo? Welcome to Pasco, Washington, and the 2015 annual conference for the Pacific Northwest Conference. There are screens in front of you, well, one screen in front of you and one behind you, where the words to these songs will appear. I invite you to stand as you are able and to join us in song. And these are maybe not familiar, but you'll learn them real quick. Here we go. Walk in the light, walk in the light, walk in the light, walking in the light of God. Here we go now. Walk in the light, walk in the light, walk
and then east through the Tri-Cities area and on to Longwood and Dayton. I assume that most of you drove here and traveled through these spaces in our district. Another thing to notice is that this is a fruitful place with many orchards and vineyards, row crops, and grain. As you drove, you may have noticed that farmers are harvesting crops, and there are crops maturing and ripening. Farmers are also tending and nurturing vines, trees, and the soils for future fruitfulness. Our distances make it difficult to build relationships and to maintain connections. Even though we have access to greater connectivity through electronics, it just isn't enough to build fruitful relationships. We are working to bring people together in the Seven Rivers District. We are focused on relationships because we each need companions for the church. We are using John 15, Jesus, the one true vine, as a central scripture. We are branches of the vine connected to one another through the one true vine. We've used this theme and the scripture in our event so far. We've held laity retreats, retreats, and had the bishop visit the Seven Rivers. We'll continue using it throughout the year in our future training workshops and charge conferences. So we welcome you to the Seven Rivers District and invite all to join together to create, strengthen, and celebrate our connections with one another through the one true vine, in the hope that we may bear much good fruit here together and have the bishop visit the Seven Rivers. We will continue using it throughout the year in our future training workshops and charge conferences.
Thank you, Karen, for your welcome. Thank you to the Seven Rivers District for hosting us for this annual conference. I'm Joan Holmes, and I have the honor of serving as your conference leader. We have a full evening planned for you, so I'm not going to take much time here, but I just want to welcome you to conference. I hope that you enjoy your time here this evening and take away something deep and meaningful from the time together. We asked the ushers to hand out booklets. If you did not get one, we will make sure you get one for the time that we will be during the session. So do not despair if you do not get to take much time. So at this time, I would just invite us to relax, and I hope that you enjoy your time here this evening and take away something deep and meaningful from the time together. We asked the ushers to hand out booklets. If you did not get one, make sure you get one.
My home church is in Des Moines, Washington, the south of Seattle. I'm the Seattle District Lay Leader, and we will do the call of worship. And before we do that, I have some directions for you. Behind you, you're going to face north. That way is east. Behind me is south. And this way is west. And this will cause where to do it. This is a responsive reading, south of Seattle. And so if you please rise as you were able, and we will do the call of worship, to join in the call to worship. And before we do that, I have some directions for you. Paul reminds us that Christ is the center of creation, of our lives, and of the world. We seek the wisdom of directions. From each direction, we are reminded that Christ brings healing and salvation, and by God's Spirit renews the face of the earth. Let us be silent as we begin. Let us face east. So please turn to the east. From the east, the direction of the rising sun, we glean wisdom and knowledge through desert silences and humble service.
Our computer was monitoring street earlier, which means that we have stopped it.
Let us face south. From the south comes guidance and the beginning and the end of life. us face west. For the west comes purifying waters. Let us face north. From the north comes strong winds and gentle breezes.
Let us pray. With long legs poking out of rain clouds along the mountain tops. Listen to our prayers for understanding. Spirit walker with strong arms embracing the wounded earth. Spirit walker with footsteps echoing like promises. Across the aching land. Spirit walker with tears that fall as snow and rain.
No, it's not on that. This is the only thing to
Spirit walker, heed the cry of every living thing.
Corinthians 5:16 through 21. So then, from this point on, we won't recognize people by human standards, even though we used to know Christ by human standards. That isn't how we know him now. So then, if anyone is in Christ, that person is a part of the new creation. The old things have gone away, and look, new things have arrived. All of these new things are from God, who reconciled us through Christ and who gave us the ministry of reconciliation. In other words, God was reconciling the world through Christ by not counting people's sins against them. God has trusted us with this message of reconciliation. So we are ambassadors who represent Christ. God is negotiating with you through us. We beg you, as Christ's representatives, be reconciled to Christ, to God. God caused the one who didn't know sin to be sin for our sake, so that through him we could become the righteousness of God.
Serves as chair of the Pacific Northwest Conference Board of Church and Society. And she said, well, I have an idea. She said, you know, one of the best kept secrets in our church is the social principles. And she said, wouldn't it be great if we could could somehow present them at annual conference, at the Laity Session, and really make people aware of what they are. And I said, yeah, that's a great idea. So we met and we talked how that might happen. And next thing I knew, she had rounded up a speaker, someone who I had never dreamed we would be able to bring here. And so we went that direction, and I'm inviting Anne then. Mental. Bringing our speaker here tonight. I'm inviting her to come and introduce our speaker.
I started attending a United Methodist church, and not too long after that, I got involved in United Methodist Women. And through the United Methodist Women, I started going to events where I learned about social principles. And it was very inspiring, enlightening, and exciting to me to learn about these social principles. And the events were wonderful. And I thought about how I might bring some of what I had experienced back to this conference. One of the events where I went, Neal Christie was the speaker, and he led our group in the litany, the companion litany for our social creed, which had just been finished, and it was very meaningful in that group to close our session together. Neal Christie serves the Board of Church and Society, the General Board of Church and Society. He joined the board in 1996 and served as seminar designer for 6 years, and now he continues as the assistant deputy director to the board. How have I got? Tell me again. It doesn't mean anything, the titles don't mean you let it go. Assistant General Secretary. Yeah, that's it. Assistant General Secretary. Anyway, he's one of those guys. And what he does is to travel the world, really, interpreting the social principles. The social principles aren't static, and so he's also gathering information, helping people think about what the social principles should actually be. So I thought he would be the best person to bring back to the conference to help us look at the social principles and see how we can apply them in our lives here. Neal?
Thank you, Anne. Thank you. And good evening, friends. It is good to be here with you and to be in the real Washington. I live in Washington, D.C. And I flew in this afternoon, and I enjoyed the scenery from 20,000 feet up high. And this is a gorgeous state. It is a gorgeous state. And it is good to be here. And I must admit, this is my first laity session. I'm usually on the other side of the wall at the clergy sessions, and I'm either addressing clergy or I have the opportunity to speak to the annual conference session about the social principles and about your most beloved agency, the General Board of Church and Society, the most non-controversial of agencies. But I've never been in a laity session, and I'm ashamed of myself to say that, and I ask your forgiveness as we begin. I want to thank your bishop for the ministry of justice that this conference is committed to. I want to thank Joan and Anne for the kind invitation to be with you and for your lay leadership by district. I share greetings from my General Secretary, Dr. Susan Henry Crow, and from the president of our board, Bishop Bob Hoshibata, who some of you may be familiar with. Yeah? He's a great president. He's a great president, and he's a wonderful bishop as well. I'd also like to let you know that we have, at the General Board of Church and Society, I'm very blessed in that you've sent me many young people, and I've returned them home. But I haven't returned them home without first having them serve as interns with our agency. There's a young woman by the name of Yvonne Agdoyang, who is, yes, that's good. I'll tell her you all cheered. She's now a student at Wesley Theological Seminary. She's a product of the Garden Street and Kent United Methodist Churches. And she is my intern, I'm proud to say. Reverend Shalom Agtarap, who many of you know, who serves as associate at Blaine Memorial. She was my intern in college and then in seminary. And then there is a new colleague who will be joining, who's moved here, he's pregnant, his spouse is pregnant, about to give birth. His name is Joe Kim, and he will be serving as associate at Bothell. And Joe was my intern when he was in college and a colleague of mine at our UN office as well as in Washington, D.C. So trust me, if you send me your interns, I will send them back home to you. And I'll send them with some experiences that will complement the kind of ministries of spiritual formation, of social justice, of love of mercy, and love of advocacy that they can expand as they do their ministry in your midst. I also want to share warm greetings from the Southern Congo and Zambia Episcopal area. Some of you may not know that your conference has a relationship with this Episcopal area, and as conferences do, this is a healthy relationship, and I want to encourage you to continue it. I was talking to several of the district superintendents there this week. I'll be there Monday to Friday, leading sessions on trauma, recovery, and conflict resolution. And they made it a point to say, please, please send our gratitude and our thanks to the Pacific Northwest for their faithful partnership and ministry in Lubumbashi and then the entire area of the Southern Congo. For the purposes of our time together, I'd like to try to accomplish three things. And what I don't accomplish, I will be here through tomorrow evening and into the next day. And I'm available for conversation. I'd like to share with you some clips from a video series called Living Our Principles that we've produced in our agency. They're stories of how people are living out the social principles at the local level. And these clips focus on the natural world, the nurturing community, the social community, the political community, economic community, and world community. The sections of the social principles that you'll find in your booklet, and I hope everyone has a copy now. And the second thing I'd like to do is share with you, go through some of these social principles, give you some background to them, and then to invite you to turn to your partner for just a few moments of reflection together. And then to end my time with you, and then as we move back into worship, sharing a little more of a video from this series that focuses on the world community section of the social principles. So if we can we please show the video clip to start?
Water, air, soil, minerals, plants, and animal life. The natural world is all around us. As humans, we rely on nature, and in turn, it is up to us to protect and conserve its resources. And we should care for it, not only because it is useful to us, but because nature supports the whole of creation. From the Congo to Appalachia, from Mindanao, Philippines to Nairobi, Kenya, stewards of the earth are challenging authority.
This is a march against mountaintop removal.
What they've done to the mountains, it makes me want to cry.
These stewards of the earth are actively seeking solutions for a more ecologically equitable and sustainable world.
It is because the environment, the life, the land is the source of life.
These are the stories of stewards of the earth. Whether a person is rich or poor, young or old, male or female, people of faith honor the sacred worth of all persons.
All persons are important because they are human beings created by God. Community.
The faithful must continually exert a strong ethical influence on the state in support of policies that ensure the dignity of all persons in society.
We know that ultimately we're going to have peace. We know that ultimately war will be eliminated. We know that ultimately we're going to have a nation where children are protected. We know that ultimately we're going to have a world where people are not battered and beaten and bludgeoned because of their skin color. We know that. And the only question is what role we will play. God controls this planet ultimately, and we must bring his will into existence.
It begins at the grassroots or seats of government. When one person speaks truth to power to build a movement, and the world changes.
We appreciate God's grace through His plans and through His plans.
It is one way to alleviate poverty. We need to plant so that we have food in our families.
Start educating on the social principles and the HIV/AIDS pandemic and the risks, because this HIV/AIDS is not for the young people only. It is affecting the entire congregation in the society.
We reached out to 4 or 5 members here thinking that we would have mentors and that we would connect the unemployed with one-on-one support. The more we listened, we could understand the grief and the loss and the pain and the uncertainty that they were experiencing.
I recall seeing my father come home in miserable shape. He'd just look at me whenever he's young and tell me, son, just don't ever go in the mines. But there are some people that would just go to the ends of the earth to help you. And they also realize that this is all there is. And if they want to live here, there's not many choices. They have to go into the mines.
We believe that God's will be done. We know that ultimately we're going to have peace. We know that ultimately war will be eliminated. We know that ultimately we're going to have a nation where children are protected. And we know that ultimately we're going to have a world where people are not battered and beaten and bludgeoned because of their skin color. We know that. And the only question is what role we will play.
Thank you. Friends, the social principles of the United Methodist Church are a call, and I'm quoting the Book of Discipline, a call to prayerful, steady dialogue of faith and practice. They are statements of belief and practice spoken by the church to society. The social principles are a product of prayer, but they also lead us to fervent prayer. The social principles begin by holy conferencing, by people of faith, but then they are tested and practiced in order to have some sustaining value. Some lifelong United Methodists become defensive when they read the social principles, when they open this booklet, when there's a new idea that seems to be in conflict with the principles that they hold. Others are overjoyed that when their conscience and experience, what their conscience and experience has taught them is actually in accord with what the social principles say. And it goes back to 1908. The first Methodist Episcopal Church social creed was written on the back of an envelope. And on that envelope were 11 principles, key statements and positions of the church, primarily focusing on the effects of the Industrial Revolution, the effect of industrialization, manufacture, a dislocation of agrarian workers in the United States, the influx of new immigrants coming from Europe. But those were 11 key points that were then presented to the White House. They became the platform for the National Council of Churches and social teaching that could rival, I would argue, Catholic social teaching. That really, in fact, globally is at the core of our identity. When we sing different hymns, we pray different prayers. We will hear scripture differently based on our context. But the truth is we have one set of social principles. The 44,000 congregations, the 100 conferences that make up the United Methodist Church in Southeast Asia, Eurasia, Northern Europe, in Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa, and North America share one social principles, one document. That is an amazing, amazing possibility for us as a church, I would argue. In 1972, when the first United Methodist Social Creed was written, there were 20 points. So from 1908 to 1972, we moved from 11 to 20. Not so bad, not so bad. But by 2012, just want to share with you, the social principles included 73 different principles. Now, that either says that we have not finished our work, or we found more work for ourselves. Maybe both. But the United Methodist social principles touch on almost every aspect of what it means to be a human being in relationship to God and neighbor. Remember that the General Conference is the only entity that can speak officially for this church through the Book of Discipline and the Book of Resolutions. And so the social principles remain the social principles regardless of our cultural context or our political realities. They've become not only statements or positions of the church, but they've become values that we uphold and needs that we seek to meet. And I'd like to spend just a few moments focusing on that right now. When you open them up, and I would invite you, if you have your copy, just to open it, and as I'm speaking, to leaf through it. If you haven't done it recently, or if it's your first time, just open the book. The social principles begin on page 17. There's introductory material and teaching material in the back, but 17 is where they start with the preface. And I would share this with you. The social principles are a set of positions. The United Methodist Church takes a public stand on timely issues. And while we may not agree with all of the positions, a public stand is in fact a plumb line. It is a common starting point for dialogue and action. The social principles are positional barometers, if you will, that determine how closely we as a church and a society will measure up to what God's vision is for right relationships with one another and our neighbors. And so the question I have for you is, where do you stand? What are you still undecided about? How did you reach the convictions that you currently hold? I'm going to invite you to turn to your neighbor for 1 minute, and only 1 minute, and talk about a time when you held a position on a public issue, perhaps a controversial issue, one that others didn't agree with you. And over time you came to a different conclusion. You changed your mind, your heart, your soul on that issue. But you came to some conviction. Someone or something got you to that place. And then someone or some event moved you beyond that conviction. Turn to your neighbor, take 1 minute to share one position that you firmly held, and perhaps a time when you had a conversion from that position. So turn to your neighbor and do that. Thank you.
No, I got a picture.
You have 1 minute. I'll give you 1 minute each.
They were just in a box.
And I'm going to invite you to stop talking. You'll come back to that neighbor, and I'm going to give you another question for that person. So the social principles are positional. They're a barometer. They test where we measure up to perhaps what God's vision is for society. It's articulated preferentially through the prophetic words and prophetic witness. But social principles are not only a legislated position. They're not only the result of General Conference, which gives you 51% of the vote, and you pass a social principle. That's not the case. They're not only the product of a legislative or parliamentary procedure. If you dig deeper, they're also a set of interests. What do I mean by interests? To varying degrees, I would argue that every one of us acts out of our own self-interest. And it's actually quite healthy. It's healthy to be aware of whose interests we represent. Frequently, we have multiple self-interests. At times, they will compete for our attention within ourselves because we rarely have an undivided sense of allegiance to one interest group. And so interests determine those who we live amongst, those whom we represent, those who look to us. They may be the result of the education we receive. They could be the result of the ethnicity that we claim. the racial identity that has been either foisted upon us or that has emerged from within us. It could occur from our nationalities, our citizenship, our gender identity, our age, our political affiliation. But we all represent sets of interests. And that's a healthy thing, I would argue. I want you to turn to your neighbor, same you were talking to. Based on what you know of the social principles, whose interests do they reflect? You may know that the United Methodist Church on the death penalty since 1972, if not earlier, has opposed the death penalty. Even when the General Conference, the majority of delegates to General Conference were in favor of the death penalty, when it came time for deciding what the Church of Jesus Christ would stand for, they opposed the death penalty. You may know that we have a particular position on reproductive justice or on abortion. We have a particular position on human sexuality. Given the positions that you know, generally, whose interests do they represent? And a bonus question for you is, whose interests appear to be missing from our social principles? If you've read them, share it with your neighbor. Whose interests do they represent and whose interests may be missing? You have 1 minute, go. I'm going to invite you to come on back together. The social principles are not only positions of the church, they're not only a collection of group interests, but they also represent core values. What do I mean by core values? Every culture communicates and passes down a set of values from one generation to the next. We reflect to greater or lesser degree the cultures we inhabit and the values that we adopt. We adopt a United Methodist culture, even multiple cultures, conference by conference, church by church, country by country. We adopt a United Methodist set of values as well, I would argue, through the social principles. They may contradict the cultural norms, the dominant thinking of the day. They may be in line with what the majority is saying in a particular country. So I want you to think for yourself, without turning to your neighbor. This is really for your own self-reflection. This question: what are two values that define who you are? What are two values that define who you are? And what are the two values that define what it means to be a lay leader, a lay member in the Pacific Northwest Conference? And from whom did you learn those values? And are those values reflected in the social principles? If you haven't read them, hold on to that question, and when you read the social principles, I want to challenge you to live with that question. Are the values that you uphold, that you've inherited, that you have adopted for yourselves, are they reflected in what you read in the social principles? And the final piece to this is human needs. The social principles are not only a hierarchy of positions, of embedded interests and values, but they also reflect human needs, basic, generic, cross-cultural human needs. When we cannot agree on the public positions we hold, when our self-interests, our interests seem to be at odds with one another, when our values seem incompatible for a time, for a season, can we still agree that even those with whom we disagree with have basic human needs? And those needs begin with things like water, food, air, a sense of belonging or safety. Can we come up with a common set of needs that we can affirm within the person whom we most vigorously disagree with? And will they be able to affirm those needs in ourselves? And I want to challenge you, when you read the social principles, to look for where the social principles address human needs, where they address human needs. I would argue that the social principles also are a way of dealing with conflict. And this is a church where we could deal with conflict in a healthy way. As a church, as a denomination I'm speaking. on those issues that appear to divide us. If we were to focus on what we share in terms of our needs, if we could focus on developing common values and also recognizing the interest groups and then considering what our positions were, perhaps we would have a different way of approaching the social principles. I'd like to turn our attention to some of the social principle sections briefly. The first is the natural world, and if you have it in your book, it begins on page 19. Well, not yet. Okay. Okay. That was my sign of my time limit. I'm going to ask you. I'm going to run through some of these for you. I'm going to run through some of them for you. And I want to challenge you to consider again, positions, values, needs. What was the other one? Interests. We have strong positions on water, air, soil. We have strong positions on the relationship between science and technology. We have strong positions on global climate stewardship, which was a newer social principle that was inserted in 2012. I want you to look at the nurturing community section of the social principles. There are some that are going to be more controversial than others, depending on where you live in the United Methodist Church. And the one that is perhaps the hottest debate right now, and you may know it's happening at the Supreme Court, United States Supreme Court this week, a decision in terms of marriage equality, but the same issue is being dealt with at the court level in Liberia, the Congo, Uganda, Zambia, Ghana, the Philippines, where we have United Methodist congregations. And the statement is this: we affirm the sanctity of the marriage covenant that is expressed in love, mutual support, personal commitment, and shared fidelity between a man and a woman. We believe that God's blessing rests upon marriage whether or not there are children of the union, and we reject social norms that assume different standards for women than for men in marriage. We support laws in civil society that define marriage as the union of one man and one woman. That is the social principle. Whose interest does it reflect? What values does it affirm? Whose needs are embedded within it? That's the question. And I would ask you to turn to your neighbor, and that'll be my last question. And I'm going to go to a video. But let me ask you, turn to your neighbor and reflect on that. Because this is one that's being dealt with across the globe right now. How would you answer that question? You have 2 minutes.
rid of that low frequency echo thing. You're golden.
Yeah, that's right. We're still I mean, it might not be your fault, but we're currently
and I'm going to ask you to come on back together. I'd like to share with you a clip from the video series that will come available in September. And this is a section that is relating to the world community section of the social principles. In some ways, the world community section is the briefest statements that we have, but they incorporate all that's come before in terms of what it means to live in the nurturing community, what it means to live with the rights, the responsibilities, and the human dignity that comes through the social community, what it means to live in the oikos of God, the household of God, the economy of God, through the economic world, and then the political community. So let's turn it over there. And the end, actually, for my presentation is what is already in the liturgy, and it's the Social Creed, Companion Social Creed Litany. I would ask you, as you look at that litany following tonight, consider that litany in light of the social principles. Does it reflect the social principles for you in a poetic dimension? Does it speak to you in a deeper way than some of these statements? Or do you feel like, wow, you know what, we need to have more litanies. We need to consider again some of these positions, values, interests, and the needs, and we've got to continue the writing, the poetic vision as well. So let's take it to the video.
1,000 dead. Later, 20,000 Zimbabweans who were perceived as dissidents would also be killed. On all sides of the country's conflict, there was great pain and devastation. But in the midst of the turmoil is the coming-of-age story of a young girl named Beauty. Beauty would find a way to rise to serve the community in a new way.
The good thing is, what I'm so proud of is Africa University has finally realized that women can be in leadership. I'm the first female dean in the Faculty of Theology at Africa University.
Beauty Mayenza Nisa wasn't always an educator.
I was going to be trained and come and be a freedom fighter. Yes, I was going to pick up the gun and fight. For me, we organized with my friends, 3 of my friends, and said, this is time to go. We didn't pack a bag. We wore layers, yes, of clothes, so that as you go, you just remove whatever is dead and leave it wherever you're living. Whatever is going to happen tomorrow, we don't know. So we just boarded the bus. We had our pocket money. It took me about 3 months not wanting to talk to anybody in my family. It was a great challenge. Yeah, then finally, that's when I received my call. Yeah.
Beauty's call was to use her power to fight for justice non-violently.
Before I went for theological training, oh yes, I was involved in politics. I'll go to rallies, and oh yes, one of the leaders in the music and all that. I was very much involved. But I had told my heart that there is a reason for me not to go. For them to follow me, there is a reason. Then, lo and behold, that's when my call arrived, and I said, okay, God, this is what I wanted to do, and this is what you want me to do. So I want to be a prophetic voice.
After the war, Beauty worked as a political activist to further dialogue and understanding, engaging with ambassadors and academics alike, until she was called to work with the United Nations Office of the United Methodist Church.
Every year I was going to the UN for the Commission on Status of Women and Commission for Social Development, looking at issues which affect women and children in Africa. So that means my voice was lifted again to look at the issues of social justice.
Beauty quickly saw that many voices in Zimbabwe were still unheard.
One thing which I don't like is to see people from outside speaking about my issues without even talking to me to find out how I feel, but they just assume this is how I feel. Even when I was at the UN, when we are talking about the poor, we don't invite the poor to talk about their issues. We want to speak on their behalf. Why don't we invite those who are suffering to speak on their issues? Then we will address them from their point of view, not from our own point of view. I feel that we need to give people voice in order for us to address their issues.
Today, Beauty works with students from other African nations to help them to do just that. Africa University is a Pan-African institution with 1,200 students. 23 of Africa's 55 nations are represented in the student body. Students at Africa University prepare themselves to use their leadership to cultivate and nurture individuals so that they might reach their full potential in community.
What I see, even those who are graduating from here, the way I am seeing them equipping, students are listening. Those who want to hear are hearing, and they are taking that message seriously. Of being with the people, not doing the things for them, but showing them the way.
We've been working with the community to help in some of the issues that as a church we can give our hand. And I still hope that I will do this when I finish my education. Finally, when I go back home, I hope to implement what I got from Africa University and some other places, and to work in partnership with others so that we can get more people helped on our work as a church.
My country have got a problem for all. They all were there to the North Katanga. So we need to go there to give them counseling as a pastor I am, to take care of them, because there is no education to other areas, the village one. There is no education for women and children, so they are suffering too much. I need to go there and organize some seminaries to inform them about God and about life.
If we move this way, we will build the church and we'll build a community. Even my students are not going only to help their parishioners, but they are helping those societies. Those who want to listen are listening. When you see the kind of work which is being done, for me, it's telling me that they are seeing that these people can be equipped by our service to them. And when they have come to get a meal, they are giving them lessons. That is helping them to equip them. Not only to tell them, do this, but let's do it together.
Another professor at Africa University sheds light on the importance of the church's role in Africa's nations.
The church has got to come out from behind its pulpits. The pulpit's going to be very important, and pulpit is being very important. The word that we're preaching is very important. But we've got to get now into people's offices where they make decisions.
Shirley DeWolf is a third-generation Zimbabwean who helped establish the Institute of Peace, Leadership, and Governance at Africa University.
I find it's very important for these students, particularly theology students, to be engaging with people who are not theologians, who are not even members of the church, but are approaching some of the same concerns from different areas. Because there's a tendency, particularly, I don't know how it happens in other parts of the world, but here, once you go into theological studies, you only study with theological students, and those are the only people you relate to for the rest of your parish ministry. You don't know how to belong to a team, you don't know how to talk with politicians, with economists, with environmentalists, you just don't know how to do it. So I think this is one area, as they're learning how to do it, how do you network? How do you recognize the areas that you really don't have capacity in and need to turn to other people for, so that you can build team approaches?
She has seen her own country change from the breadbasket of Africa to a nation where food is scarce.
We're trying to get perspective on this. And we're trying to take responsibility for some of what's happened. Where I think we failed was to move beyond the question liberation from, to asking the question liberation to. Liberation to do what? What did that liberation look like? Yes, we could describe it in sort of vague terms like we want to be free. We want the people to all have access to, there were some practical aspects. We want everybody to be able to vote for the government that they wish, et cetera, et cetera. But we didn't look to see how was that going to be structured.
It is an issue for many nations in Africa. The lack of infrastructure once liberation is achieved.
We persuaded the politicians to take on the rhetoric of reconciliation, but we didn't realize that reconciliation is mainly a matter of the heart, and therefore mainly a matter for the churches. And so we had this great rhetoric, but the community, the nation was not reconciled.
Today, Zimbabwe is at a critical point where political forces clash violently.
We're having to decide, what do you do with people who are multiple killers, who are responsible, who really should end up in The Hague? How do you accompany people to The Hague and do it in a way that they know that this is their calling? That's a tough thing to do. First of all, you have your own fears of these people. And secondly, you know that you're taking them to a place they don't want to be. But how do you bring justice into...
Good evening, friends. My name is Douglas Evans. I am the lay leader for the beautiful Vancouver district. And as Reverend Christie said earlier, we have in the handbook that you've been given a companion litany for the social creed. And if you're like me, and heaven help you if you are, but if you're like me, you like to read things from the book. So if you want to turn to page 53, you'll find the words we're about to recite on that page. If not, the words will be on the screen. I would invite you to stand as you're able as we read responsibly the companion litany to our social creed. God, in the Spirit revealed in Jesus Christ, calls us by grace. Today is the day God cares for the integrity of creation, wills the healing and wholeness of all life, weeps at the plunder of earth's goodness. Today is the day God embraces all hues of humanity, delights in diversity and difference, favors solidarity, transforming strangers into friends. Today is the day God cries with the masses of starving people, despises growing disparity between rich and poor, demands justice for workers in the marketplace. Today is the day God deplores violence in our homes and streets, rebukes the world's warring madness, humbles the powerful, and lifts up the lowly. Today is the day God calls for nations and peoples to live in peace, celebrates where justice and mercy embrace, exults when the wolf grazes with the lamb.
And so shall we. Today is the day God brings good news to the poor, proclaims release to the captives, gives sight to the blind, and sets the oppressed free.
And so shall we. You may be seated.
So I want to thank Neal for spending this time with us. The books you received were a gift from Neal, and I hope you will take them back to your setting and use them, introduce them to folks who may not have heard about them or know much about them. He's given us some excellent questions that we can use to spark conversation. And so our hope is that this really is just the beginning, and that you'll really take these home and help your congregations, your faith communities understand how we as United Methodists and the work we do is informed by our social principles. Would you join me in thanking Neal? You should also know that Neal is one of the premier scholars on the social principles and has written a book called Justice in Everyday Life. And it's available through the upper room. And if you just Google the title, Justice in Everyday Life, you'll find that at the upper room. Now I'd like to introduce Christina Gonzalez. Many of you know her. Christina serves this conference as Director of Leadership Development for an Inclusive Church. As you walked into this space this evening, you came through a gallery. I hope you noticed that. Christina is here to explain to us why that's there. Christina?
Hi, everyone. It's good to see you all again and to be in this space to do the work of God through our annual conference. You did walk through a gallery today, And I hope you'll take time to read the statement in the gallery and to linger with the photographs and to think about, as we move through this conference, why they are there and why they will remain there. Tomorrow, we're going to be celebrating acts of repentance. This repentance will be for the role of the church in the devastation of Native American communities, the role of the church in cultural genocide and actual genocide of Native peoples as settlers moved west. We're going to be talking about our history, and some of it will be new, and some of it may be history that you know, but we hope it will be a time to ground us in who we have been as Christians, but who we want to be in the future as well. So the acts of repentance came from long study on the part of the General Church about relationship with Native American communities. And in 2012, the General Conference produced an act of repentance and requested that all annual conferences do the same within the quadrennium. So we're celebrating that this annual conference. You'll notice that the space, not only the gallery space, but the space here is both natural in its setting, and we have a beautiful centerpiece on which to meditate as we move through our acts of repentance tomorrow. This centerpiece is brought to us through our connections as an area, the Greater Northwest Episcopal area, through the Oregon-Idaho Conference. The committees on Native American ministries came together a couple of times during the course of this year to talk about the acts of repentance, what they should mean, how they should be conducted, who should tell the history, who should receive it. And from those connections, we came into contact with a committee on Native American Ministries member of the Oregon-Idaho Conference, whom I would like to join me now. Would you welcome, please, Coyote Marie Hunter Ripper. Coyote Marie is Cherokee, Choctaw, and Scottish. And she is a traditional practitioner and will tell us a little bit about the drum. And we, as laity, will have an opportunity to watch her settle the drum. These probably aren't the words that she will use, but she'll use the correct words. Settle the drum into this space so that we have the opportunity to be with it and with her during our acts of repentance tomorrow. So thank you for being with us and making the effort to bring this into our presence.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here, and thank you for having the drum here. Hi, everyone. How are y'all doing? Has anybody noticed this drum up here? Huh? It's a big one, all right. So how many of you have been to a powwow? So quite a few. So you've probably noticed that there are drummers there, and there are big round drums that drummers sit with, and those particular people that are sitting on the drum are called a family. It's a family that's come together, that sing the spiritual songs for the dancers, and so on. How many of you have seen this big a drum at a powwow? So it's about twice as big as most drums that you see at powwows. It's about 6 feet long and, 4 to 5 feet wide. The wood is from a cottonwood tree, and I've been told by some that it must have been about a 200-year-old tree. The covering is a buffalo skin. Now, when a drum is made, it's a gift to the world. So this drum being here is a gift to you folks. The drum came to me about, I think it was about 2.5, 3 years ago in dreams. Now I'm Cherokee, Choctaw, and we did not grow up with women sitting on a drum. There's very few tribes that have that protocol. This is not necessarily a traditional drum, so it's not drummed in a traditional way. In this dream, there were 4 men who came to me dressed in traditional Native clothes. I identified them in the dream as Dene. Each one of these men told me that a drum was coming to me and that I would continue dreaming about it and what to do with it. And that was it. Don't you just love that when Spirit gives you like this little piece of information and then you have to figure out the rest of it yourself? So it was quite a while later. I was taking a class at Southern Oregon University, and after I was in class for a while, the instructor she just kind of started looking at me sideways, you know, kind of like out of the corner of her eye now and then. And then one day I was called up after class, and I thought I was like in trouble or something for not doing my homework. So she said, tell me more about what you do. So I told her about what I do, who I was, a little bit more. And she says, you know, I've been having this dream, and there's these 4 men that are in this dream. And they look like Indians. I don't know who they are, what they're doing. They said that there was going to be a woman come to one of my teachings, and I'm supposed to show her and lead her to this drum. And she says, and I know about a drum. Would you like me to show you this drum and let you know more about it? And I said yes. So the next step in that was traveling to Texas. So from Oregon, I'm from Southern Oregon, all the way to Texas, we made this trip to visit the home of where this drum was sitting. The woman who was holding the drum at that particular time had had a dream with 4 men, 4 Indian-appearing men in this dream, telling her this woman from Oregon was going to come pick up the drum. So she was ready for that. She had been taking care of the drum in a very profoundly respectful way. She was very emotionally attached to the drum. And here's the story that she told of how she came to it. She also did not come from a drumming group or people who had drummed, but she started having this dream about sitting at a drum and drumming herself. And she says sometimes the dream would get so loud with the drumming, it'd wake her up in the middle of the night. So she started looking around and kind of waiting for this drum to like appear in her path. And she's a woman that likes to, anybody here like to go to yard sales and secondhand stores and stuff? You know, so that was kind of one of the things she liked doing. And she was just kind of thinking about this and wondering what to do. And she saw this used furniture store, and she decided to go in there to just kind of, you know, it was kind of her way of meditating, going into a used furniture store and looking around. And she's looking around, going up and down the aisles, and she passes something, and she started hearing that drumming. So she turned around, she's, drum, hearing this drumming. She's looking and looking, and then right in front of her, she looks down, and here sits this drum. So she thought, maybe this is the drum I'm supposed to take home. It had quite a price tag on it, and it was being used as a coffee table. So she just knew she had to rescue it. She took it home and refurbished it a bit, and would have a few people coming over to drum and that sort of thing. It had to move on to bigger and perhaps better places. So my friend Barbara and I picked this drum up. We put it in the back of a little Honda CRV, and we, plus all our suitcases, and we both like picking up rocks along the road and stuff, so we had about 300 pounds of rocks. And, you know, you got to stop in New Mexico and Arizona and, you know, on and on. So that little Honda CRV weighed about, I don't know, 1,000 pounds more than when we first started out. So we get it back through all of these different reservations that we're traveling through, and at every one, we would stop in at a trading post or a store, and we'd look for a blanket because it needed to be covered with a blanket. And I had a couple blankets. The person that had the drum she had her grandmother's quilt that she wanted to give us to put over it. All very special items, but nothing was quite right. So we finally got this drum to my home near Ashland, Oregon, and we kind of gathered up a few people around the neighborhood, and it takes about 6 really strong people to lift this and get it into, you know, a regular narrow door, and it just seemed to float in there and to shift its shape and squeeze through those doors and poof, settled right down on the floor. So now, what do I do with this drum? So now what do I do with it? You know, my dreams had stopped. I wasn't really getting too much more information. And I knew the next step I had to do was to cover it. You know, I know that protocol from powwows and friends that I have and so forth. So the next time we had a meeting around the drum, I said, you know, I really need a blanket here. One of the women said, hey, I got this blanket. My mother, who has departed this world, that she knew and honored you, I hear her saying to give this blanket to you. So the next day, she's bringing it up my sidewalk and up the stairs, and she's carrying it like this. She's carrying it like she's carrying Christ's purple robe, you know, walking up there, and she goes, you know, and I just couldn't believe what I was seeing, because it was one of those Pendleton Oregon blankets with all the orange and green on it. So I thought, gosh, I think it wants to be in Oregon. I really do think it wants to be here. So we covered it with that blanket. And we've been having small drum circles. We've been having small get-togethers. We've been taking this drum to many, many different places. It was just at the World Peace and Prayer Day with Orville Looking Horse near where I live. And now it's here. It's very interesting that it's here, I think. I just want you all to contemplate on that, think about that a little bit, of what an honor this is to be here, and how I'm so honored that I've been asked to bring it here too. This drum, for me, symbolizes recognition, recovery. symbolizes acceptance and change. So wherever this drum goes and wherever it sits, it's something different than wherever it's been before and where it's been historically and where it's been held before. I'm not sure if it's a Navajo drum or not. So when people say, well, what kind of drum is this? Whose drum is this? I very humbly say, it's Marie's Cherokee drum. That's all I know to call it now. And I really appreciate it being here, and I'd like you all to hear its voice and connect with the heartbeat of this drum that's here on this land. Would that all be okay with you all? Yeah? All right. Thank you. I was just asked if I would like you all to stand, and I think that you can all just sit. This is not a traditional drum song. Just do as you're comfortable. But I would also ask that while I'm drumming to not take any photos. Thank you. Before I drum you all out, I just found out just before we came up here that the drum is sitting where we put it in the plenary where the meeting is going to take place. So we've totally displaced the bishop. No. So this drum may not be here tomorrow. So it may be, I don't know, we might just sit it over to the side, but you may be seeing it appear here and there throughout this session.
We want to thank Coyote Marie for sharing part of your story with us and for sharing your gift with us. We are blessed to have you here. Thank you. Thank you. We're going to move into our closing song and our benediction, but that doesn't mean that we will be finished at that point, because there is business to tend to once the worship portion of the evening has completed. So I'm going to invite our musicians to come up to the mic. Let me introduce one of our musicians who did not introduce himself. The person who designed the worship this evening and who is leading our music is our associate lay leader, David Reinholz, who is also a Seven Rivers District member. So thank you, David, for all you've done to put this evening together.
So we're going to sing a song that requires you to learn a foreign language. The foreign language that I need you to learn very quickly is from Kenya. The good news is there's only one word you have to learn, and this is it: yo. Can everybody say yo? Yo. Yo. Okay, that's all you got to know. Yes, we probably should. I'm going to allow the folks with me up here to introduce themselves, tell you where they're from, and I'd like to publicly thank them for helping me out up here. So I'm just going to let them speak. We'll start with Elise and just kind of go around the circle and let them know where they're from.
Hi, I'm Elise Miller. I'm from Hope United Methodist in the Vancouver district.
Hi, I'm Megan Kilpatrick. I am from Puyallup United Methodist Church in the Tacoma district.
Hi, I'm Peter. I'm from the Light of the Hill United Methodist Church in Puyallup.
Hi, my name is Heather Hull-Hart, and I attend the Riverview United Methodist Church here in Pasco.
Hi, I'm Dave Riddle. I attend Kashmir United Methodist in Kashmir.
So I invite you to stand. You may move your feet, clap your hands. This one's a little up tempo, and we're going to figure out how we're going to build a church. So we're going to start with the refrain. Ready? 1, 2. Here we go. Oh, who will build the church now? We'll build it together. Oh, who will build the church now? We'll build it together. E-yo, yo, yo, yo. E-yo, yo, yo, yo. E-yo, yo, yo, yo. E-yo, yo, yo, e-yo. Oh, who will build the church now? The mothers and fathers. Oh, who will build the church now? The mothers and fathers. E-yo, yo, yo, yo. E-yo, yo, yo, yo. E-yo, yo, yo, yo. E-yo, yo, yo, yo. E-yo. Oh, who will build the church now? The children and grown-ups. Oh, who will build the church now? The children and grown-ups. E-yo, yo, yo. E-yo, yo, yo, yo. E-yo, yo, yo, yo. E-yo, yo, yo, yo. E-yo. Here we go now. Oh, who will build the church now? The lay and the clergy. Oh, who will build the church now? The lay and the clergy. E-yo, yo, yo, yo. E-yo, yo, yo, yo. E-yo, yo, yo, yo. E-yo, yo, yo, e-yo. Oh, who will build the church now? With what will we build it? Oh, who will build the church now? With what will we build it? E-yo, yo, yo, yo. E-yo, yo, yo, yo. E-yo, yo, yo, yo. E-yo, yo, 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 e-yo. Oh, who will build the church now? We'll build it together. Oh, who will build the church now? We'll build it together. E-yo, yo, yo, yo. E-yo, yo, yo, yo. E-yo, yo, yo,
last name is Yo, so that's a great song. Hi, I'm Jenny Yo, and I'm the conference president for United Methodist Women, and thank you. And I'd like to thank all of you for bringing those beautiful quilts. If you have not seen it, they're all hanging in the back, and they're piled up high in the back. And tomorrow you'll have an opportunity, some of you who would like to ride with us, there will be 4 cars waiting to take you to deliver some of these quilts into the community. So let us join with the benediction that you have in front of you. For all that God can do within us, for all that God can do without us.
Thanks be to God.
For all in whom Christ lived before us, for all in whom Christ lived beside us.
Thanks be to God.
For all the saints, for all the spirits wants to bring us, for where the spirits want to send us.
Thanks be to God.
Amen. Please be seated.
So I know it's been a long day for many of you, and I want to thank you for hanging in there with us. At this point, we're going to transition from worship to business. As you know, General Conference and Jurisdictional Conference will be coming up next year, and at conference this year, we will be electing delegates to both General and Jurisdictional. I'm going to invite Patrick Scriven to start making his way up to the podium. Patrick is going to share with us a little bit about what we have to do here this evening. We're not electing anyone this evening. This is the time when we gather nominees. If you haven't already submitted your nomination form, and you're thinking you would like to be a nominee for one of these positions, tonight is your chance to do that. Patrick, I'm going to let you start, and then we'll go on from there. We'll see what more we need to fill in. Okay, so this is your moment to think about whether this is something you would like to do. Patrick?
Awesome, thank you. Good evening. So I think they looked for the person who was most Gen X and rule adverse to come up forward and read the rules for you. So I'm going to do that as closely to the script as possible. So my first instruction was to tell you to listen carefully to the instructions. The second is this. You are only supposed to vote for the lay candidates. Which candidates are we supposed to vote for? Clergy, lay? All right. So those will be the purple ballots, and there will be 100 numbers on it. The ballots are different, and the clergy have lots of other folks. Every clergy person is on the ballot, more or less. And for lay folks, you've got to kind of put yourself on the ballot. So we are suspecting that there will be less than 100 people in the room here who want to run for General and Jurisdictional Conference. If there are more than 100, that's a blessing we will deal with. So pink ballots are for the clergy, and there's lots of numbers on them, so avoid those. For the laity, the names and the numbers that are assigned to them will be on the screen at the time of voting. Do not vote until you are told to do so. As they hand out the voting cards, there will be pencils that are handed out with them. Please only use pencil for voting, otherwise your vote may not count. Listen carefully for the number of people for whom to vote. So for some of the elections, you may be asked to vote for one person, but later in the conference, you may be asked to vote for numerous people, so listen carefully. If you vote for too many in an election, your ballot may be invalid or will be invalid. If you vote for too few later on, it probably won't be a problem. That is my understanding. Somebody will correct me tomorrow. The number of remaining votes, once we get in past the general conference voting, will shrink as someone earns enough votes. So maybe I lied about that first thing. Listen carefully again tomorrow morning. So finally, this is more a rule not about who to vote for, but who can vote. Only lay members to this annual conference session can vote. So if you're a lay delegate or late alternate, you are not able to vote if the main delegate is voting as well. And guests cannot vote, and during times of voting, there will be chairs in the back of the room. There will be a ribbon or some way of designating where the bar is for the room, and you will be asked to seat yourself back behind the bar. So with that, any questions? I'll leave that to Joan. Kinda.
Good, that would be good, thank you. All right, so a number of you have submitted your name as nominees. I'm going to ask you if you have already been nominated or have nominated yourself, and we have your nomination form in hand in the conference office. Would you please make your way to the front and sit here in this front section? And while they're doing that, I am going to open things up for nominations from the floor. Yes, there's a mic right here. If we just raise your hand if you'd like to nominate someone or self-nominate.
My name is Marie Cook-Stanovsky. I'm from Green Lake United Methodist Church, and I'd like to nominate Karen Kwan, a member at Seattle First United Methodist Church. She's unable to be here this evening, but will sign the nomination form tomorrow. She's on a mission trip with her youth group.
Okay, we will need to have that nomination form in hand by, I believe, 8 a.m. tomorrow, because they're making up the nominations at that. Can she email it? Okay, if she can. Yeah, I was told we need to get it here by 8 a.m. tomorrow. Good, thank you. So Karen Kwan has been nominated. Any others?
I am Ann Mayer from Federal Way United Methodist Church, and I would like to nominate Jill Mayer. She doesn't have a form in yet, but it will be in someone's hand in the morning.
So I would like to nominate Douglas Evans. Is that right? Where's Douglas? Douglas Evans, there he is. Douglas, will you accept the nomination? And this is for General Conference. Others? Okay, oh, here we go.
I'm Bob Jardina from Winlock, and I'd like to nominate Carol Kearns, also from Winlock.
Could you repeat that name?
Carol Kearns.
Carol Kearns. And is Carol in the room? Will you accept the nomination? No, she declined, all right.
I'm Virginia Drohan from Gig Harbor United Methodist, and I'm nominating Amanda Toby.
Amanda, will you accept the nomination? Amanda Toby, thank you. And as you are nominated and accept the nomination, would you also move forward to the front row here? Okay, others? And just so those of you who are accepting nominations know and understand what's ahead, you're going to be given 2 minutes to speak to the group so that we can be introduced to you and know who you are before the voting begins later in the week. Okay, so I'm going to self-nominate. I would like to nominate myself for Jurisdictional Conference. Others? Give it. Did I hear a voice? Yes, I'll accept. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, we're going to give it another few seconds. Speak now. This is your last chance to be nominated. Jenny.
Excuse me, Joan, there's some confusion in the back about whether you're asking for nominations for General Conference or for Jurisdictional Conference.
I'm actually asking for both. So if you are nominated, I will need to know which you are nominating the person for.
I was going to nominate you for general jurisdictional conference, but you did it yourself. So
Thank you.
Thank
Still,
you.
yes, yes. General conference or jurisdictional. Okay, I see a hand here.
I'm not nominating anybody, but there are new people who have never been to conference or have never been to conference during this time. If you could explain the difference between general conference delegate and just
Okay,
jurisdictional, please.
Yes, thank you. So the difference between general conference and jurisdictional, and I'm going to turn to an expert in the room. Ah, here he comes.
What was the question? The difference between general and jurisdictional conference. The next general conference will take place May of next year. It is a gathering that brings together about 900 delegates of United Methodists from across the world, and their primary task is working on updating the Book of Discipline. So it is the global gathering of United Methodists. The jurisdictional conference that we belong to is the Western jurisdiction, and it takes place also in a quadrennial cycle. And the Western jurisdiction provides leadership for our particular area, which is pretty much everything in the United States that is west of the Rocky Mountains. So, and that conference will take place July of 2016. And a key thing that they will be doing this year is electing at least one new bishop. So that is one of the big tasks they do, but they also help to provide a vision for our Western jurisdiction. Did that answer the question appropriately? Yes, thank you. General conference is a commitment that is about 2 weeks. It's 10 physical days, but with some additional days on each side in May. The Western Jurisdictional Conference is only about 4 days. Now, both of those require a lot of preparation and work. So saying 2 weeks versus 4 weeks does undersell the amount of effort and labor that goes into it. And all the delegates put in a lot of good prep work so they can do a great job of representing us all. My belief is, there's a formula that is based on the size of our conference and in comparison to all the other conferences around the world. So for general conference, we get 1 delegate and 1 alternate delegate. And I believe for jurisdictional conference, we then elect another 7. Is that right? 6 or 7? 7 total, and then we elect a few alternates beyond that as well. The people who are elected for general conference also go to jurisdictional conference. So it's a commitment for both of those. All right.
So we haven't scared anyone away. Are there others who would like to be nominated?
I would like to nominate Ian McKnight for general conference.
And is Ian in the room? Ian, will you accept the nomination? Yes. Thank you.
I'd like to ask, why are we nailed down to tomorrow? I can think of about 3 candidates who would be excellent, but I haven't even talked to them and they don't know about it.
Yeah, we've been advertising this through various sources, hoping that people would pick up on that before now. And the problem is the list or the ballots are being made up tomorrow, because I believe we're taking our first ballot tomorrow. And so the people in the office need the names. In fact, I'm going to give them the names tonight so that they can get the names in place by morning.
Another point of clarification. The people that are being nominated tonight were indicating whether or not they're for jurisdictional or for general conference, but the nomination forms that were in our packet don't indicate which. When will we know which they're being nominated for?
You will know tonight, because as they come up to speak, we're going to do them in two groups. Those who are speaking as nominees for General Conference, followed by those who are running for jurisdictional. So we'll make that clear. Thank you. There was another.
Sorry to bother you on this, but would there be any possibility of nominations from the floor tomorrow?
No, apparently not. Okay, I understand we have to cut it off at 8 a.m. so that they will be on the ballot. Other questions or nominations? Okay, I'm not seeing any hands. All right, so I'm going to, do you see someone, Pete? No. I'm going to once again ask those who have accepted the nomination to move down here to the front. And we have a process for determining who speaks first. And I think, Catherine, do you have, how many? Those of you who are here ready to speak, prepared to speak, or who have been nominated, would you raise your hand? I need a head count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 11, looks 12, 1, 11? Bring 12, just in case. All right, bring 12, yes, in case I missed someone. So we're going to have you pick a number and determine who, in what order you'll speak. And you'll be coming up here to speak, yes.
While they're doing the numbers, I'm going to, again, my name's Rosalie, and I'm the Seattle District Lay Leader. I'm also the head teller, and Patrick gave you all sorts of details about balloting and voting and so on, but now we have to have people to do the mechanics of it. And I need 5 more tellers to work throughout the duration of conference. And if you don't know what a teller is, it's like a counter. If the bishop calls for a hand count, that means the tellers have to count the hands. And then when we vote on the delegates, you just heard Patrick mention the ballots, the people will mark their ballots. The ballots have to be collected, turned in, and then this machine voted. So that's basically what we will do as tellers to count votes. You will be assigned a section of the plenary floor, and that will be your section for every time a vote is called for. And it's usually, we'll split each district up into 2 or 3 different areas. Who can be a teller? You have to be a member of annual conference. If you are one of these people that have been nominated and are choosing to run for a position at general or jurisdictional conferences, you cannot be a teller. That would give the impression you might be stuffing in the ballot box. And we must not do that. There will be an orientation tomorrow with all the tellers just before we go to lunch. And Shirley DeLarme, who's the pastor at Port Orchard, is the conference secretary, and she will be sitting up here on the dais tomorrow. So come and stand where she's going to be, and I don't know which end of the stage she'll be, but we'll gather down in front, and she will provide the orientation, because there's some instructions and so on that we'll be talking about. And my caution is to all of the tellers, be alert, because the bishop can change things as bishops can do. And so we already know that there's a clergy balloting going on tomorrow. that was not planned for up until the time everybody got here today. So I don't know how this may affect the laity tomorrow. But if you are willing to be a teller for the duration of annual conference, I really would appreciate it, because if you don't come to me, I'm going to be coming to you. So, you know, let's be, you know, spring up from the masses and come. I'm sitting over there, but before you leave, I really do need 5 names before you leave. And actually, I think one of those names will be a cushion if something happens. So anyway, please come. I need 5 more names. Thank you so very, very much. The conference will thank you, because this is a requirement that we have to do. Thank you.
I'm back. So if there's anything Gen Xers like more than rules, it's correcting mistakes. So I want to correct something that we did mention earlier, and it's this, that there will be one last time in the morning allotted for the naming of someone. They will not have an opportunity to speak, but they could put forward a name in the morning, and as long as there is a way for us to know that they would accept that, so if they are here in person, that they would accept that nomination, or there was some other way of confirming that, that would be, we could allow that change. Thank you.
I'm adding to what Patrick said because any name could be listed on any ballot. So we've nominated folks. They'll be listed on the screens tomorrow during the election. But you are empowered to write in any name on any ballot. And I've been told that if there are 10 write-ins that name one name, they will then be added to the screens. So just to fill in the gap there.
Okay, are you thoroughly confused? Hopefully those who are nominated do understand and have read the rules and understand how this works. So we're going to start hearing from folks. We've given everyone 2 minutes to speak, and so I'm going to ask, our numbers are a little mixed up here, so we'll straighten them out and figure out who will come up, and we'll ask you to introduce yourself and speak for 2 minutes. Christina will be our timer, and she will signal you when time is up. So, for the candidates then, Christina will hold up 3 fingers when you have 30 seconds remaining, and then give a signal when your time has ended. All right. So first we'll be hearing from those running for General Conference.
Hi there. Hello. My name is Megan Kilpatrick. I have the privilege of drawing lucky number 1. I am running for General Conference because I feel like I bring a really strong and unique laity voice. If you've never met me before, I've grown up in Washington my whole life. I was actually born in a small part of unincorporated King County that's now Montlake Terrace, so it was like King Snohomish County. But I really spent the majority of my childhood in Selah. So you passed it on your way here. If you came from the west side, you probably slept through it. And then I have lived in Tacoma since college, which was a few years ago. So I really feel like I have kind of the best of both worlds. I grew up in a really small town, and now I live in a bigger city. And there's really a lot of unique differences and similarities, actually, between them. So I kind of feel like I've been blessed with both worlds. My training is as a nurse. I'm an oncology nurse by training, and I feel like that really empowers my voice when it comes to my own personal faith. One of the things that is really unique about oncology nursing, and I also have some experience in hospice care as well, is that we have sometimes some really frank discussions about really tough things. And that is something that I feel is also important when you start talking about issues at annual conference or general conference, where we're talking about some really important stuff, and it can be really hard sometimes, and we have varying differences of opinions. And my nurse training has helped me determine, here are the facts, and how can we ask those really important questions to get to the root of things, but also hold that I'm a person, you're a person, we have passions, we have opinions, and that we can be different, and that's okay. So I'm asking for your vote very humbly, because I feel like I would bring a really reasoned and intentional and thoughtful voice to General Conference. Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is David Reinholtz, and I've been doing some thinking lately about what I would look for in a general conference or Western jurisdiction lay delegate. And I think there are 4 important considerations in our selection of lay delegates, and I'd like to share those. First of all, I think a delegate needs to be spiritually grounded, a person on a journey of spiritual discovery, someone present, someone who doesn't think they have all the answers, but recognizes the divine mystery of love and grace and is open to what God is doing. Someone who works on moving away from dualist thinking, yes, no, right, wrong, black, white, gay, straight. One who is open to a third way. I would elect someone who values the connection to the larger United Methodist Church. Someone who understands the amazing things we Methodists do when we combine our resources and energies. We are better together than we are apart. Someone with experience at the conference level or higher. I would look for someone who is a leader. Look for a proven record of leadership experience. Look for a team player, a team builder, and someone who gets things done. And finally, look for someone with energy and commitment. Are they healthy and willing to do the hard work that is General Conference? Will they commit to long days, short nights, and pages of documents? Will they voice their opinion and remain open to hearing other ideas? These are the qualities I would look for in a lay delegate to General Conference, and with your prayers and support, I hope to be that sort of representative for you. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ian McKnight. I'm a member at Gig Harbor United Methodist Church. I have always thought about wanting to go to, I joined the United Methodist Church as a sophomore in high school. And I'd say that the United Methodist Church really saved my life for a few reasons. And so I've always sort of let myself go wherever I went in the United Methodist Church. The first place that it sort of led me to after college, which I went to Western Washington University, was getting hired almost immediately after college at Gig Harbor United Methodist Church as the audiovisual coordinator, because my degree is in theater. Technical theater specifically, so I'm doing the lights for this conference and running some of the projection stuff. That's why I was way back there. But the second place that led me is one day, I was running audiovisual at Gig Harbor, and Patrick Scriven and his wife Kara, my district superintendent, came and sat in the service. And Patrick came up to me after the service and said, hey, we have an opening at the conference office. So now I'm also the interim regional media center manager. And it seems that, thank you, and it seems that God is leading me very specifically. Because I didn't reach out to Gig Harbor United Methodist. They reached out to me. I mean, I was a member there already, but God has really been directing me where I need to go in my life right now. Even though theater is my world, I'm not doing much theater. So I hope you elect me for General Conference. Thank you.
My name is Marie Cook-Stanowski. I'm a member at Green Lake United Methodist Church, and I prayerfully offer myself as a candidate for General Conference 2016. At age 28, I am just sliding in within the range of official young adult in our annual conference, but I'm proud to be a candidate with experience of the past 2 general conferences, in 2012 as your lay delegate, and in 2008 as a conference communicator. In 2012, I was elected to chair the subcommittee on ordination qualifications, and I was elected to the General Board of Global Ministries for this quadrennium. At Global Ministries, I am both the chair of the Committee for Communication and Development and the youngest on the board of directors. As chair of Communications and Development, I was able to work with staff to present and champion the fundraising initiative that garnered the 2 highest days of giving in our denomination's history. Methodists around the world gathered together to raise millions of dollars for mission and ministry throughout the world. When we are united, we can do powerful things. In Portland, we could take a stand to become more inclusive of our LGBTQ brothers and sisters. We could become leaders in the movement for climate justice, where we could advocate for the rights of women and girls around the world. And those are just some of the petitions that I've seen. And though I speak for the potential of General Conference, I've also felt the feeling of disagreeing with that strong voice. I've been in the frustrated minority at General Conference before, and I feel called to offer myself again because I truly believe that the conversations in Portland will be sacred work, that holy conferencing around contentious issues can create sacred space for discernment of the divine. I feel called to engage in that holy work, and I thank you for your consideration.
Hi again. Just to remind you, my name is Douglas Evans, and I'm offering myself as a candidate for General Conference for next year. I'm going to tell you a little bit about me. Professionally, I am a hospital administrator consultant in the Vancouver area, and a large part of my role in that position is to listen to all sides and to thoughtfully consider what the right path is. So I would offer myself as someone who would bring that same attitude and approach to General Conference. In terms of my church history, I am currently a member at Mill Plain United Methodist Church in Vancouver. I'm a lifelong Methodist. I've been on staff as choir director, and I've also been a volunteer leader as part of the church council, leading that group and as lay leader. At the district level, I have been working as a coach for the past several years, both in the Beta Vitality process that is underway and for some natural church development experimenting that we did in the Vancouver district. And at the conference level, I am currently a member of the Board of Ordained Ministry. But none of that really matters. What matters is, where is the Spirit leading us? Where does the Spirit want for the United Methodist Church to go? every general conference, we seem to be facing some very tough decisions. And I would like to offer myself as someone who would go in and try to listen to all sides and really get dialogue going that builds the community, builds our denomination, and builds the Lord's church here on earth. Thank you.
Hi guys, I'm Amanda Toby. I am a lay delegate from Gig Harbor United Methodist Church. I just graduated high school, a week and a half ago. Despite being the youngest up here, I have been really involved with the church. I have served as a voting delegate from my district the past 2 years. And I have been on the Conference Council of Youth Ministries for 4, this past year serving as the chair for middle school ministries and helping put on Convo 2015. In the last year, I got to go to the Global Young People's Convocation and Legislative Assembly held in the Philippines, and we had roughly 400 voting members come from all over the world, all of us roughly under the age of 35. And that was the first time I had to deal with legislation sessions that lasted 14 plus hours into 2:30 in the morning, and the first time I really had to deal with language barriers. But in that time, I was able to discuss with people from all sorts of different cultural backgrounds and learn what their problems were, because the problems they're dealing with right now can differ from the problems we're dealing with in the US. And so we got to discuss what their problems were and what our problems were and try to find a way to compromise throughout debating and voting on our legislation written by our young people to go to our general conference. And that gave me new insight into how to deal with being in an environment with a bunch of people and finding ways to compromise and go with where the Spirit led us into what needed to come out of that legislative session. And that is why I would like to be a general conference delegate. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Tom Robinson. I'm a member of Covenant United Methodist Church in Spokane. This is my third conference here. I am an attorney. I've been practicing for 34 years. I teach American politics at Gonzaga University. I attended Gonzaga University on a debate scholarship. 15 years ago, I was on a leadership team that helped establish a nonprofit organization in Spokane that now represents 28,000 people in Spokane. We lobby the Congress, we lobby the legislature for jobs and health care for individuals. And as a consequence of that background, I wanted to try and take some of the skills that I've learned as a result of those experiences and put them at the disposal of this conference. We have talked about open minds, hearts, and doors, and unfortunately, not all of the denomination necessarily adheres to that in the same way that we do in this conference. I think we can be a prophetic voice for that position at General Conference. I think that it is important that we bring the Word of God not only to the people who don't believe in God or don't know God yet, but also those people who do, but perhaps not as well as some of us do here in this conference. As a consequence of that, when we look at the people that God has created, He has created gay children, straight children, black and white children, young and old children. And I think that there is an important place for every one of those children in His plan and in His design. I think it is incredibly important that we try and be that prophetic voice so that we can bring that message to General Conference and not only advocate for some changes in our book of discipline, but also be that prophetic voice so that we can ask for some of the things that we think need to be changed and actually go out and do something about it as opposed to merely talking about it. Thank you for your consideration.
I am Barbara Dad Schaefer. I'm a part of the Stanwood United Methodist Church in the Puget Sound District. I'm a lifelong Methodist and United Methodist. I love our denomination, and I really want it to be the best it can be. And it has some growing and some fuzzy edges that it needs to work on, but I'm confident that we can moving ahead with God's Spirit to do that. General Conference and the Jurisdictional Conference are important parts of that, and who represents this conference at those two conferences, it's important who you choose. One of the things that I would like for our beloved denomination is to be inclusive of sexual minorities, but greater than that, to be inclusive of people who hold a variety of theological views, including some with which I cannot agree, and who hold a wide variety of social views, including some with which I cannot agree, but that we are an inclusive church. If I'm elected to General Conference and then perhaps more likely to Jurisdictional Conference, I will work diligently towards that and hopefully effectively. I bring experience. I bring experience with the global church. You heard already an earlier speaker speak of our partnership with Congo, and I thought about wearing an outfit that would remind you of my connection with that. I've been to numerous general conferences, most of them in an official capacity, and have also been to Jurisdictional Conference as a delegate many times. I know how the systems work. I can help represent this conference well in that setting. And for that, I ask for your vote.
We're now transitioning to jurisdictional candidates. My name's Brant Henshaw. I'm a member at Bellevue Aldersgate and also your conference treasurer. I'm going to be at General Conference working. I'm probably going to be there 3 or 4 weeks, so 2 weeks. You guys got it easy. Jurisdictional Conference this year with an election of a bishop and some challenges for the Episcopacy Committee in deciding how and if bishops will be moving will be an important role for us, an important time of decision. We're starting to move in all kinds of directions as an annual conference, and I think it's very important that we advocate to try to keep our bishop present as we begin to look at how we move into the future, as we deal with the transitions at local churches. We'll be dealing in the next couple of days with discontinuation of 5 churches. It's my estimation that we'll probably be closing 4 to 6 churches a year for the next several years, just looking at the outlook. And so at some point, as a conference, we have to redirect our energies and find ways to get back on a growth pattern. I think I bring a holistic and broad understanding of what's happening in churches of all sizes. And as a staff person, I'd be happy to represent all of you at the jurisdictional conference. Thank you.
I'm Joan Holmes. From Queen Anne United Methodist Church in Seattle, and I would be honored to serve as a nominee or as a delegate to jurisdictional conference. I've served in many capacities in my local church, but what's relevant to this, I believe, is that in 2002, I began to serve on the Conference Commission on Ethnic Ministries. About a year later, I began to chair that commission, and as a result was invited to join the Western Jurisdiction Interethnic Coordinating Committee. I served on that committee for 2 quadrennia, and as a result of serving there, I was sent to General Conference in 2012. Also, in serving as lay leader for the conference, I've had the opportunity to work with lay leaders across the world, but more specifically, those in this Western jurisdiction. I think the relationships that I've built have placed me in a position where I am uniquely qualified to work with a diverse group of leaders. I think the relationships allow us to talk about the hard topics, to listen deeply to one another, and truly share a vision for what the church, for what the jurisdiction can be. So that said, I just would be honored to serve as delegate to jurisdictional conference, and humbly place myself in a position to be elected. So thank you for your consideration.
My name is Noriko Rao. It's still hard to believe that I am up here as a lay delegate candidate because running for anything is not my style. So let me tell you how this happened. The idea of a lay delegate suddenly popped up in my mind during my morning devotion on March 23rd, when I was thanking God for the 8 faithful, courageous women who gathered on a dark, stormy night of March 23rd, 1896, and launched Methodist Women's Foreign Missionary Society, a predecessor of UMW. It's not unusual for me to be distracted during my devotion, but this was kind of a nudging. So I got really curious, and I dug up Amory Peck's article about what it means to be a delegate to General Conference. At that time, I didn't know I could just run for Western jurisdiction. So anyway, I am actually want to be considered for jurisdictional conference. So anyway, in that article, Amory mentioned that delegate to General and Jurisdictional Conferences will be part of the pool of those considered for Western jurisdiction representatives to the general boards and agencies. I have a keen interest in serving on GBGM. When I was Conference Secretary of Global Ministries, I was invited to one of their meetings as a presenter. That was a fascinating experience. More recently, I needed to find out GBGM budget relating to apportionments and looked at their annual report, but could not find that detail. I asked for help from one of the GBGM directors as well as GBGM treasurer. I still could not get a satisfactory answer. That heightened my interest in serving on GBGM. Of course, there's no guarantee that I get to serve on GBGM, even if I'm elected to be a delegate to jurisdictional conference, but you never know until you try. So here I am. Thank you.
All right, so you've heard from 8 who are running for General Conference, 3 running for jurisdictional. I want to make sure we didn't miss anyone. Everyone has had a chance to speak, all right. So these are your nominees, and tomorrow, I think, we will see the first ballot, and so you can sleep on it and pray on it and make wise decisions tomorrow. Before we adjourn tonight, I just want to, I have one quick announcement for those of you who are new to annual conference and would like a little bit of an orientation before the work begins tomorrow. There will be 3 table groups available tomorrow during breakfast to do small group orientation. And so just look for the area in the little dining area where there will be table tents, red table tents, and some red streamers on the wall, on the curtains, and you'll know to head that direction. And we have 3 folks who are all prepared to give you an orientation to annual conference. So if you're new or fairly new and just want a refresher, please look for those tables. All right, I'm going to invite our musicians to come forward and pray us out of here. I want to thank you for sticking with us. It's been a long night. I know for some of you a very long day. And I look forward to seeing more of you in the days ahead. So have a restful night. Go in peace. Amen.
You can leave. We're just going to provide some traveling music. You've had a long day. See you guys tomorrow.
Oh my goodness, David. It's just the 2 of us? I thought it was just the 2 of us.
Somebody has left a phone. I don't want you to forget it. I'll leave it here. Please come back and get it.
Walk in the light, walk in the light, walk in the light, walking in the light of God. Walk in the light, walk in the light, walk in the light, walking in the light of God. Walk, 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 walking in the light of God. In the light of God, walking in the light of God. Let's walk. Walk in the light, walk in the light, walk in the light, walking in the light of God. Walk in the light, walk in the light, walk in the light, walking in the light of God. Humba, humba, humba.